now we have the situation where the world is breaking apart. We're in a decentralized revolution, which is what I talk about every week. And now each of these nations are kind of moving out on their own. They realize that the United States and the dollar payment system, or I should say the dollar payment network, more than anything, the dollar is a payment network. It's a way to move money around the world almost instantaneously, and it works pretty good. It's archaic, but it still works pretty good, especially for the U.S. government. But if you're on the wrong end of that, like Russia, for example, then you get sanctions, and you get your bank accounts seized and frozen. And if you're not a top 3 global superpower with nuclear weapons, what chance do you have? And the answer is none. And so the world's starting to break apart. And we saw this week that Russia claims Bank of China in talks to challenge the U.S. reserve currency status. That's a big news. Big news this week. And we can see that Russian officials want China's help in developing an international payment system that would allow Moscow and Beijing to undermine the global primacy of the U.S. dollar. Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak said, such work makes it possible to prevent risks and promote the transition of the ruble and yuan into the status of world reserve currencies, end quote. And so what he's saying is it makes it possible to prevent risks. What risks? What risks are they using the dollar system? Oh, the one where they seize all your money, that risk. Oh, the other risk where you're not allowed to join it or you get kicked out of it. So any country that gets sanctioned, like Iran, for example, and I'm not saying they're a good country, and I'm not saying that they don't deserve to be sanctioned. That's a different topic for a whole different day. My point is what risk is he talking about? Makes it possible to prevent risk. What risks? The risk of, 1, not being able to freely trade with other countries, or 2, being, by not being allowed to use it or being kicked out of it, or 2, having your money taken. That's a big risk. Wouldn't you agree? And so, of course, if Russia doesn't stand a chance, then no other country stands a chance. And so China sits back and watches this story and goes, shoot, we didn't really think about that. Like, man, if Russia takes Ukraine and the world just moves to shut them out of the banking system and take their money, what happens if China over here, we want to go take Taiwan? What could happen? Well, we better start, I like to say all the time in business, dig your well before you're thirsty. Don't wait until you're thirsty. Start digging before you're thirsty. And so maybe China's like, well, shoot, we should probably build up another system before it's our turn to get kicked out like Russia, like what happened to Russia. And that's exactly what it looks like it's happening here. It says that they're aligned in their mutual ambition to degrade Western power. In this regard, the Central Bank of Russia and the Bank of China are working on the possibility of opening accounts for Russian companies in China, Chinese companies in Russia, and creating a payment system without using SWIFT, Novak said. So SWIFT is the monetary system that moves money around the world. And so they want to create an alternative to that. And of course, Russia is kind of, I don't know if I want to say leading the charge in these Brics nations. So it's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South America. Of course, now we're seeing Argentina. We're seeing now even Saudi Arabia saying they want to join the BRICS, which make up about 60% of the people in the world. So if they set up this other system, it makes sense that 60% of the world could move on to that system. It says dozens of foreign financial institutions joined Moscow's alternative payment system this year. A Russian central bank said in September, but the number is still dwarfed by the thousands of entities that rely on SWIFT. So dozens have jumped onto the new alternative that Russia has already set up. But dozens is small compared to thousands, obviously. It says here, quote, the U.S. needs to mend its ways, stop politicizing and weaponizing economic trade and sci-tech issues, and provide a fair, just, and non-discriminatory business environment for foreign companies, including for those in China, said China Foreign Minister spokesman Zhao Lijian. So this is a problem. And it's not an easy problem to dissect, and we could spend a lot of time talking about this. But basically, you have potential problems like terrorism, right? If a nation is hostile to the United States, should we allow them to have that money that makes them more hostile? These are very tricky issues. There's no good answers for this. But money should be a tool. And so tools can be used for good and bad. And money should be a tool, and it should not be political. Now, I guess if you control the money, then you want to control some of the interests of that. And that's exactly the situation the U.S. is in. The problem is, as the United States continues to get more, as they continue to weaponize the dollar more, they're just going to have more and more people wanting to go move to a different system. And so anyway, that's big development, and we'll have to see how that plays out.